time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Bill Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
And good evening, everybody, and welcome into Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a championship Friday nights in the Palmetto State. It is high school football championship night. We wrap up the long high school football season in South Carolina with 5 championship games today. One team has already been crowned a champion. Congratulations to Myrtle Beach High School. The Seahawks winning their 8th state championship, their 3rd for head coach Mickey Wilson, as they are 37-21 winners today over Greer. Details on that coming up as we come to you live from Williams-Brice Stadium tonight, where 3 of the state championship games are being played. The one I just mentioned, the one that's ongoing right now, and it's a surprise. This is a shocker. It is Chester leading Dillon 28-6. 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. Chester just scoring a little while ago as we were coming on the air, and the Cyclones and the Wildcats. This is a bit of a shock in that Dillon, of course, in its 7th straight championship game, the Wildcats had not allowed but 1 rushing touchdown all season. On the first play of the game for Chester, a 49-yard touchdown run by the very talented Philique Brown, and that got Chester off to a very good start, and the Cyclones have not really let up on offense or defense, and they are shocking the Wildcats right now. And then the last game of the night here will be the 5A championship game between Dutch Fork and T.L. Hanna, another pair of unbeatens. Meantime, across town at Benedict College, the 1A championship game is being played as we speak. They kicked off there a little bit after 5 o'clock, and they are at halftime. And Green Sea Floyds, this would be considered another stunner, is leading Lamar at the break 26-14. And coming up, it's Abbeville and Barnwell in the 2A state championship game. David Shelton will be along in a little bit to talk about all this and more from a high school perspective. We have Will Pelagic and the Professor Tom Hayes back in our studios in downtown Columbia. So, guys, I've been really full of it with high school football. This is a great day. You see a bunch of folks related to high school football across the state, writers, reporters, coaches, all coming into Williams-Brice Stadium to watch the games. It's a fun time for high school football. And the weather today, even though it's a little chilly, it's been pretty much dry all day, and the high school league made a very wise decision to move the games up from tomorrow because the weather tomorrow is not supposed to be good at all. So the crowds here tonight are able to enjoy games that are being played under dry conditions, though it is a bit chilly. But we have more stuff going on, Mr. Pelagic, related to college football and college basketball around the corner.
You certainly do. It's a busy basketball weekend involving teams in the state. Both South Carolina and Clemson play away from home. USC sitting at 4-4 at Michigan on Saturday. They're taking on a Wolverine team that is 23-1 in their last 24. Their only loss coming in the national championship game against Villanova. Clemson will play Mississippi State in Newark, New Jersey. That's the Never Forget Tribute Classic. We'll find out whether or not they'll be able to have leading scorer Marquise Reed in the lineup. We found out after their victory over St. Peter's Tuesday, that Reed was injured with a knee ailment that went down. Basically, a sprained MCL is what the MRI came back on. So good news for Clemson from that respect. But I think it's ambitious to think that he'd be able to play just a couple of days removed from that injury unless the sprained MCL was rather minor.
Well, the key point is here is you want to win every game you can. However, in basketball, you got enough games to catch up. And this should be a lab for Clemson to find out if they can't find another person willing to step up and score without him, because you want him completely healthy when the ACC season begins.
You certainly do. USC basically in a stretch. This is round 2 of a stretch of 4 games against high-power opponents, basically from the standpoint of where they said at least 3 of the 4 are high-power opponents. And the one game, the Wyoming game already in the rearview mirror, was a tough ask in a road environment. They play at Michigan at the Chrysler Arena there in Ann Arbor against a team that was a national runner-up last year. You come home after finals and you play Virginia at home, and then you have the rivalry matchup with Clemson. it's hard to see where a win comes in this stretch of 4, especially because of the way that South Carolina has struggled in the second half. That's the one thing, if you take from all of their losses, all 4 of them, they've been outscored in the second half by a mighty margin.
And the point is, they've got to find somebody to score and be comfortable where they're scoring and figure out where everybody is. And that's why you got these young players struggling right now, because if you see shots on goal, South Carolina probably has had more shots than any of their opponents have had, but they're hitting at a very low percentage. And here's the key to Frank Martin's defense. His defense is predicated on you playing hard all the time. Once these young players miss a few shots, then they hang their head on defense, and now they're dead meat.
Also, number 25, Furman plays USC Upstate this weekend. Should be an interesting contest for the undefeated Paladins and Bob Ritchie's squad. Coastal Carolina and Wofford playing Sunday. USC women's basketball playing at Duke this weekend as well on Sunday. They're going to travel up on Saturday. They'll be going through the same kind of weather that we're talking about, and we were talking about for the games that would have been played tomorrow in the high school league. And Clemson women's basketball, who's yet to lose at Little John Coliseum, home against Rhode Island and Corn. All in the football at least level right now is quiet, except for the fact that it does look like once again Clemson comes by unscathed with one of these head coaching hires it's made. Jeff Collins, the new man at Georgia Tech, is introduced today by the folks there in Atlanta. Tony Elliott bypassed by the Yellow Jackets. Some think that with Collins leaving from Temple might consider Elliott as part of their potential candidates. But if Georgia Tech didn't come calling for Tony Elliott, it's hard to envision anybody finding him appetizing enough, or at least him finding any job appetizing enough to leave the Tigers once again, as all these assistants seem to garner all this attention, but they seem to stay in the upstate.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think Philadelphia, I can't speak for Tony Elliott, but I just don't know that that would be a good fit for him, considering that he spent his career in the South, from South Carolina, coaching at Clemson. I mean, if you get a chance to be a head coach somewhere, you want to maybe take it, but you got to make sure you're in a position where you can win. And that's obviously, even though they've had a little bit of a run of success here through their last couple of coaches, that is indeed a very tough place to win.
And the thing about it is their last at least 2 head coaches, 3 actually, now that I think about it, because Adazio before Matt Rule, last 3 Temple head coaches are all guys who are currently coaching in the Power 5. Adazio at Boston College, Matt Rule at Baylor, and then, of course, with Collins now going to Georgia Tech. So it could be a gateway job, a proving ground job for a coach like an Elliott who lacks the head coaching experience. But like you said, geographically, I don't know if it makes much sense.
Well, we
have just had a turn of events here at the Williams-Brice. Dylan, which has been playing from behind, just gets a 41-yard scoop and score from Jarius McDaniel. So the Wildcats, they tried the 2-point conversion that failed, 28-12. You know, the beautiful thing about high school football, as I see it, guys, there's no replay. So if there is a call that is missed, it's going to stand no matter what. And we had a call earlier in a game, I can't remember if it was this one or the previous one, where it was an obvious incompletion, or it might have been an interception that should not have been, because the television replay showed the ball hitting the ground. But, of course, the officials had called it, I think it was an interception. And so it stood because there is no replay in high school football.
You say that's good?
Might have just – well, yeah, I mean, the game just flows. I mean, we don't have these stop and starts and stop and start delays. And you know, officials are human, man. Put the human element back into the ball game. Let's get back to people. Let's get away from robots and machines, and let humans decide things. And if they make a mistake, so be it. Players make mistakes. Human officials can make mistakes.
Listen, here's your issue. It doesn't necessarily sit with replay. It sits with the fact that it seems like all the TV networks, whenever they have replay, try to capitalize on it with ads. That's where your problem is. It has nothing to do with the replays themselves. The replays themselves could be done within a minute and a half. It's all the TV
most of them
timeouts.
Go over. You look at the college average, I think it's like over 2 minutes without any sort of commercial interruption. So it's just the number of them and the frequency that it just messes up the flow of the game. All right, we'll be back, 800-956-7266. We'll take your phone calls. Open for your calls tonight here on Sports Talk.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We'd love to take your phone calls, 800-956-7266 on this Football Friday from the high school perspective. Everything kind of on the college ranks is quiet right now, getting ready at least next week and over the next couple of weeks to get bowl practices in for both South Carolina and Clemson. So we will bring you at least the most we can from those. We'll hear from both head coaches in the Belk Bowl on Thursday. We'll hear Dabo Sweeney for the first time coming up, I believe, on Wednesday as well. And, of course, next week it's Touchdown Energy Bowl week and Shrine Bowl week, so still plenty of football for us here. Of course, we have the state title games going on right now, the 1A final going on right now, as is the 3A. 2A final later on the night involving Barnwell and Abbeville in Corner. A bit of a side story involving the folks at Abbeville, and this is coming from a tip that we got to our Facebook page of Sports Talk SC, and we did a little digging. According to the folks at DNR, they are investigating 4 juveniles from Abbeville County. This is from our friend Captain Billy Downer in regards to night hunting and several other charges. No charges have been made at this time, and because the individuals are juveniles, DNR are not releasing their names. Why is this important to us? Well, the tipster who put it in towards us believes that these 4 gentlemen are on the Abbeville high school football team. That's not something we can independently confirm at this point, but if that's the case, that's especially involving some basically bullying. Those were the allegations involved, and some use of the hunting weapons to use as an intimidation tactic. Just an unfortunate story out of Abbeville if this all does come to pass as being true, Corn.
Oh, yeah, terrible story. And, I mean, you've got children being children. Let's don't forget, even though these guys are wearing Warriors armor and they go out and look like men, they're children. They're 14, 15, 16-year-olds, and they do stupid things. They do mean things. We know hazing and bullying goes on in schools, and they're trying to reduce it and cut it down. It's unfortunate, and it's still under investigation. So we don't know what's truth and what's fiction and who's involved in all that. But as far as we know, with Abbeville, the game's going to go on, and all players are accounted for as far as their roster is concerned.
Yeah, and again, I'm not necessarily trying to substantiate any rumors, but basically it involves, according to at least what we hear from DNR, some night hunting and then possibly some vandalism involving what they were hunting and things of that nature, in an attempt to bully and intimidate, and just an unfortunate situation if it is true and it does involve football players. It's true. It's unfortunate if it involves anybody, but especially coming in advance of the state championship game, it puts a negative tinge on what should be a day of celebration of high school football in the state.
Well, we got a great one going on here right now, and we'll see if Dillon can rally, because they just scored. And I'm kind of having to watch the game with one eye and, of course, take care of business on the air with the show. But I did see where a long pass for a touchdown just took place for Dillon, 1:11 to go in the third quarter. And so the Wildcats are back to within 2 touchdowns. They got a 2-point conversion. So it's 34-20 Chester on top of Dillon. And I think we're going to have a lot more scoring in this one as each 2 teams go back and forth. The first game of the day, it was Greer and Myrtle Beach. And Myrtle Beach comes away the winner, 37-21. Greer led early and took a 14-10 lead into the halftime break. But then it was the Luke Doty show. The future Gamecock quarterback, the junior from Myrtle Beach, came out in the third quarter, had a 5-yard touchdown run, a 14-yard touchdown, a 23-yard touchdown pass. And Myrtle Beach also had a 14-yard touchdown run. And all of a sudden, 21 straight points, and Myrtle Beach is up 31-14, and they go on to win 37-21. And for Doty on the day, he was 24 of 35 for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was quite good on the afternoon. It's the 8th state championship for Myrtle Beach, the 3rd for their coach, Mickey Wilson. Here's some of what he had to say to the media, including our own David Shelton, after the ball game.
You just put the ball in Doty's hand and said, hey, go win us the game?
Well, it's been a crazy season. I mean, we've had all kind of adversity this season. We basically missed 3.5 weeks of practice in the middle of the season and because of the storm. And then we go down to Hartsville and we get embarrassed in the last week of the regular season. And I'm just so proud of our guys. And I want to tell you this, we got the best coaching staff in the state of South Carolina. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Best coaching staff in the state of South Carolina. I'm just happy for everybody.
You just put the ball in Doty's hands and said, hey, go win us the game?
Well, it's been a crazy season. I mean, we've had all kind of adversity this season.
You just put the ball in Doty's hands and said, hey, go win us the game?
Well, it's been a crazy season.
Okay. All right. We're having a little bit of a repeat there, but you heard what Mickey Wilson had to say. It has been a crazy year. Those teams in the coastal area and the PD area in particular, hard hit by the hurricanes and by the flooding. They missed extensive amount of time. They missed games. They missed practices. When all was clear to come back to work on the football field, they had a limited amount of time to get ready for their next game, especially Green Sea Floyd's, which is leading Lamar 26-14. I mean, they were out for practically a month. And when they were able to come back together as a football team, they had 4 days to get ready for their first game after the hurricane. So, unfortunately, and the way things have been weather-wise in recent years, guys, I mean, it looks like this could be an every year situation with us in that part of the state, dealing with the hurricanes and the flooding and the interruption of the football season. So, I mean, you hate to think about that moving forward. You cross your fingers and hope the hurricanes skip the state of South Carolina or don't even appear at all. But I would say the chances of that are reducing as time goes by.
Well, I mean, and they're probably going to have to sit down in the off season and maybe rework the way they do the scheduling. I mean, I know they already have, basically from the standpoint of having week 0, they already have, a built-in bye week, if you will, that is at least reserved for folks to have to maybe go through a situation differently. Maybe because of the way the hurricane season falls, teams might try to build in a bye week a little bit later or earlier, depending on how that season falls. But again, it's hard to predict. It's hard to plan for possible natural disasters that come about. And from the standpoint of where they sit, it's unfortunate, but they have now at least a second experience with this. Of course, Matthew a couple of years ago, and now with what happened with Florence here in this high school football season.
All right, so we are going to the fourth quarter, and Chester, which under Victor Floyd played for a state championship a few years ago and lost, and now he's got them on the verge of a state championship if they can hang on to this 2-touchdown lead against Dillon as we go to the fourth quarter. We'll have recruiting coming up for you in a little bit, and several pieces of interesting news that we'll pass along to you on the recruiting front, so stay tuned for that. If you want to join us, we've kind of given all our regulars now a couple of weeks off before we bring them back before the bowl games. So we're open for your calls, 800-956-7266. We have no football filibuster. We have no Lee Sterling. We have no interviews with the opponent's reporters and things of that nature. So we're open for calls tonight, 800-956-7266. David Shelton will join us here at some point. It might be after this game. He is here, of course, covering the state championship. So he'll be coming by to talk some high school football here in just a little bit.
Any thought to the hiring of Liberty's Hugh Freeze? I know you saw that coming out today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty ironic that a school the nature of Liberty would hire a guy who, of course, was partially brought down for allegedly calling strip clubs or things of that nature.
Escorts.
But then again, maybe this is a sign of forgiveness, and the belief by the folks at Liberty that you give somebody a second chance, a chance to prove themselves all over again. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that because, heck, we need to mention that Mark Tucker resigned today as the head football coach at Charleston Southern. So that job is open.
Well, you also mentioned the second chance. The guy who's his AD was none other than the Baylor athletic director, Patrick McCaw, who was the AD over Art Briles during the scandals that took place there involving alleged sexual abuse from his football players. So I don't know. In my mind, it comes from a school that has proven that they are morally bankrupt, and it continues with Hugh Freeze being hired there. That's just my opinion. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. You mentioned this before the break. I do want to at least a little expound on it just because it does involve an in-state school, Corn, with obviously the resigning by Mark Tucker, the head coach at Charleston Southern. Now that job is vacant and open. It's not exactly a long tenure for Tucker. He was only there a couple of years. I think his record was, 11-11, and he had a 6-4 mark in the conference in the Big South as a head coach. He was an assistant, of course, on Jimmy Chadwell's staff. Chadwell took the job at Coastal Carolina, and Tucker was an in-house promotion. I mean, does this sound like something that is a little bit out of the blue to you?
Well, talking with David Shelton, who seems to be everywhere and covering everything, he covers Charleston Southern very closely, so he's very much in tune with this thing. And I don't know. I mean, I hadn't seen any hints of this, but I think this is probably Jeff Barber is the AD there. I think he's new. And he's probably kind of pushing this thing forward, making a change to kind of start over with the football program. But keep in mind, it's a football program that's got some big-time issues for that level because they're on probation by the NCAA for playing ineligible players.
Yep.
And there's some they've got penalties to deal with related to scholarship restrictions and forfeiture of games and
some money as well,
records being changed and all that kind of stuff. I mean, coaches are having their records changed to reflect the fact that they've lost games now and because of forfeits and all that kind of stuff. So it's unfortunate that it happened. It's a convoluted deal that David was telling me about what happened there. It's not about the bookstore thing that most people know about. It's about the fact that at Charleston Southern, they had, I guess, one person working in compliance, and that person was overrun with the work, overwhelmed by it, and couldn't keep up with the process. And they apparently assigned a coach on each of the staffs of individual sports the responsibility of compliance and eligibility for the athletes on those teams. And they didn't do a very good job, and it fell through the cracks, and you had players who were ineligible playing. And it's, as a result, you got to forfeit those games. So lack of institutional controls the deal there, and that means loss of scholarships and stuff like that. So whoever is hired is going to inherit that situation. All that being said, I think that they'll find a quality coach somewhere with some ties to either the state or to the program and start from scratch again. Jamie Chadwell has proven that you can win there.
Yes.
And you can win in the Big South with good, smart coaching and the right players to fit your system.
Well, that system can't be that you can't endure with that system. First of all, even if everybody's above board, it looks like the fox guarding the hen house. You don't want guys who have to recruit and coach to also handle that part of the equation. It just doesn't seem right.
Isn't there also a significant financial component to the penalties that were handed down by the NCAA? Don't they have to pay back a certain amount of money? Is there I remember seeing that there was a financial component as well.
Yeah, it could have been. I don't remember all the details of that right now, and you're probably right. They probably are taking some money away from them. I mean, I think this goes back to when they won a Big South regular season basketball title that they may have to or have had to give up and things of that nature. So, it's a painful thing for Charleston Southern because, since they went NCAA and moved into the Division I basketball level and the Division I AA or FCS football level, they've had moderate success here of late, and a lot of that success is going to be wiped from the record books. Now, to the athletes and to the coaches, it's like, hey, you might take us out of the record books. We still have the rings, and we still know what we did on the field or on the court. You can't take that away from us. But in terms of the NCAA and how they feel about it, yes, they can.
Yeah,
so,
I don't like the whole vacation of wins thing. It just doesn't. It rings hollow to me. But whatever.
Well, I mean, if you play an ineligible player, I mean, you should not get credit for a victory. So what else can you do?
Yesterday we played you some of the sound from the Atlanta event that involved all four of the college football playoff qualifying head coaches. And not that we are completely penciling Clemson in past Notre Dame and Alabama past Oklahoma, but I think we kind of are.
We're penciling in. I'm using the ink pen.
Oh, you're using ink? Well, regardless of which pen you might be using to predetermine your opponents for the College Football Playoff Championship in Santa Clara, here's a little bit from Nick Saban, not only talking about the upcoming opponent, Oklahoma, his quarterback that got injured in the SEC Championship, Tua Tagovailoa, and a potential fourth consecutive matchup with Clemson in the postseason.
Oklahoma is a team that certainly knows. They've had some great games this year, high-scoring games where their defense has come through when they need to. But I do think this is one of the most dynamic teams that I've seen for a long, long time in terms of the way they play offense. I think, Lincoln does a great job with their players. They've got some really explosive players. The quarterback's an explosive player. They can run the ball. They have great balance. So, I don't know that there's one particular thing other than I think their players know how to win, and they've won a lot of close games, and they've come from behind in games. And this is a team that is as explosive as any as I've ever seen, and it's not. I mean, it's designed that way. It's not like, and I think it's very difficult to stop a team like that. And I think that Coach Riley does a great job, and their players believe in it and execute it extremely well.
Sunday at the teleconference, you said it'd be a couple of weeks for Tua. Has that timeline changed? And just generally, how is he feeling?
No, I think Tua is right on schedule. The procedure they did usually takes 2 weeks for a guy to be able to have any explosive movement, and then they go from there. So we'll see how he progresses from there. But we're pleased with the progress that he's made to this point.
Coach Saban, Dabo has said that there's Alabama and then the rest of y'all, and he's just glad to be on the rest of y'all bus. But they've been here 4 years in a row now. Just your thoughts on kind of the program and what he's done at Clemson.
Well, I think Clemson's got an outstanding program, an outstanding team. I think Dabo does, a really, really good job on a consistent basis. They have good players, but their players really play well. They're well coached. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They execute well. It's a difficult preparation when you have to play against them. And I think they've been one of the most consistent, dominant teams, throughout this entire season. And I always say there's a lot of books written about how to be successful. There's not many written on how to stay successful. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for the fact that they've been able to do it on a consistent basis and be here over and over and over and over and play at that high level all the time, not have any complacency in the program. And their players are continuing to try to play it to a high level and be the best players that they can be. And I think that's a tribute to his coaches and their staff and himself.
That's Nick Saban. Again, Alabama and Oklahoma meeting in the Orange Bowl in Miami. Just seeing this come across, Corn. We wondered whether or not Mac Brown's hiring at North Carolina would bring back some Big 12 influences. Well, they have brought some Big 12 influence with an air raid-esque offensive coordinator. The former North Texas offensive coordinator and former Texas Tech quarterback Graham Harrell is going to run the offense for Mac Brown at UNC. Thoughts?
Better get some players.
True.
You can have all kind of great concepts and ideas. You better have a quarterback, and they better have some receivers. And what they've got to do is close the borders in recruiting. And of course, that's supposed to be his strength, and we'll see what happens. But Clemson and South Carolina and Tennessee and Georgia and Florida in recent years, they have gone into North Carolina and cherry-picked most of the best players in that state. So his first charge, besides putting his staff together, is going to be to see what kind of recruiting they can do in-state. By the way, real quick before the break, 34-20, 6:52 to go. Dillon was in the red zone. Interception in the end zone for Chester.
I will say this. When it comes to the air raid, very similarly to the wishbone, you don't necessarily need the best talent in order to run that offense efficiently. You can put up some points if you have the right play design and the right concepts. You don't need necessarily 4 or 5-star talent.
Look at Central Florida.
Exactly. You look at Washington State, where Mike Leach is.
Look who they play. We're talking about if you're going to play with the big boys.
Well, they are playing in the ACC Coastal after all.
The guys are always checking email. Send your comments or questions to talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, more of Sports Talk from Columbia's Main Street.
Well, it seems that Graham Harrell's tenure at the University of North Carolina lasted all of 35 minutes. Because Inside Carolina, who initially reported this story, has been debunked by Bruce Feldman of The Athletic. He says, contrary to an earlier report, Graham Harrell is staying at North Texas and not joining the North Carolina staff of Mack Brown, contrary to an earlier report.
Dan, who are you going to believe here?
I mean, it's Inside Carolina. It's the 24/7 people at Carolina. I would have thought that, at North Carolina.
North Carolina.
That's what I said. At North Carolina. I'm sorry. Yeah. We also got a question from one of our listeners at Sports Talk SC, who's wondering about the television coverage from the high school league and the playoff games. I don't believe there's anything for the 1A and 2A, but the games at Williams-Brice, at least the one going on right now, is on the Watch Fox 57.2 digital channel. We glad to promote that because it involves our friend Corey Miller, and he told us again the Dutch Fork TL Hanna final, which is expected to be a very big barn burner final, will be on the big Watch Fox tonight, channel 57 in Columbia in the Midlands, if you are listening to us here and there.
And everything is running behind. The night game is supposed to kick at 7. We still have 5:24 to go here. Chester is up 34-20, but Dillon is driving again at the Chester 31-yard line. If they can knock it in for a touchdown, this thing could get a little dicey down the stretch. And by the way, Corey is doing the play-by-play on this game, and Ryan Brewer, former Gamecock great, is doing the color commentary with him. So you got a couple of former Gamecock standouts. Before we get to recruiting, we had the post-game comments of Mickey Wilson, at least a few brief comments from him. It was a bad piece of audio. Apologize for that. I did not get a chance to pre-listen. We have fixed that now with more elaborate audio from him, and it gives him a chance to go a little deeper into his post-game thoughts. So let's go to that. Then we'll do recruiting. So here's a little bit more. We'll begin at the beginning again with Mickey Wilson, and then more of what he had to say after winning the 4A state championship.
You just put the ball in Doty's hand and said, hey, go win us the game?
Well, it's been a crazy season. I mean, we've had all kind of adversity this season. We basically missed 3.5 weeks of practice in the middle of the season and because of a storm. And then we go down to Hartsville and we get embarrassed in the last week of the regular season. And I'm just so proud of our guys. And I want to tell you this, we got the best coaching staff in the state of South Carolina. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Best coaching staff in the state of South Carolina. I'm just happy for everybody.
Well, that defense has been steady all season long, and I mean, they took over that first half. They gave it to us.
Well, the defense just carried us all year long, and offensively finally caught up in the last couple of weeks. And it's just a great win. It's a great win for our community, our players, and it's just a great time to be a Seahawk right now, baby.
Look around, look at the players, look at the students. I mean, what's that mean to you? I see a smile on your face, and I was like, good to be around.
Well, it's huge. We went in at halftime. We weren't playing great. We talked about handling adversity together and just coming out and having fun in the second half. We weren't having fun, and we came out the second half fun, and now they're having a blast. So.
All right, Mickey Wilson, congratulations. And one thing I want to do in the second hour, guys, and maybe we can get some people talking about this. I never had the pleasure of winning a state championship. My senior year of high school basketball, we got to the state semifinals.
Oh, thanks.
It's got to be a special thing to win a state championship, and I'm envious of people who've had that excitement. Have either of you had the opportunity to play on a state championship team?
Not state champion. We played for a conference championship, but not a state championship. The school that I went to in Virginia was not eligible for a state title because of the fact that the Catholic League, they don't let you play for a state title. Mm-hmm. It's very stupid the way that works, but never had that opportunity, unfortunately.
Pro?
Yeah, I've won a state title before, but I won't mention what it's in.
Okay. Piano playing?
Oh no. Actually, it was what would you think it was in?
Chess.
Close.
Checkers?
Close. No, it was debate.
Ah, that sounds about right.
Okay. I was going to say bridge as my third guess.
It was debate.
another pick six, not a pick six, another interception thrown by Dillon.
Well, it's over
and so that
now.
kills that threat. And this is a young quarterback, a junior at Dillon, he forced that ball into coverage there under some pressure. He's a very good quarterback, but it looks like, barring a complete collapse here, the Chester Cyclones are going to win the championship. They got 4.5 minutes to kill.
They have the coach of the year too, right, in the state of South Carolina, Mr. Floyd.
Victor Floyd, absolutely.
Much vindication for that, basically.
Oh yeah. All right, recruiting now, because we got some stuff happening here on this Friday, as things have popped up in various forms and reports. So we begin with Gamecock Central reporting a couple of things here. Running back Eric Gray of Memphis, the Gatorade Player of the Year in Tennessee and a former Michigan commit, is going to take an official to USC this weekend. He rushed for 2,500 yards and 40 touchdowns this season. He's got Ole Miss involved and others now that he is no longer committed to Michigan. And, of course, Tennessee's trying to get in there as well. But big visit opportunity here for USC. Also, according to Gamecock Central, longtime USC commitment receiver Jamario Holly of Northwestern is no longer a part of the class due to academic reasons. So you delete him from the commitment class. It puts USC at 19 now for the 2019 class. USC today offered a quarterback, 2021 Brock Vandegrift, 6'2", 183 of Bogart, Georgia, Auburn, Florida, LSU, among other offers. Per Coach Robert Wayner of Tampa Plant High School, Dabo Swinney, Tony Elliott, Robbie Caldwell were in the home this afternoon with offensive lineman Will Putnam. Wayner wasn't there because he was at the high school championships in Orlando. He went on to tell us that Auburn, Gus Malzahn, was in yesterday, and tomorrow Florida State, Willie Taggart, will be in for the last in-home visit. Over the weekend and Monday, the coach and the family are all going to get together and start assessing everything. He says the young man is totally open and has, at this point, no clue where he's going to go. And they're going to start working on that next week, and he's going to announce on the 20th, not the 19th, the first signing day. He's going to wait till the 20th because his grandparents are out of the country. He wants them to be back in town to join in on the festivities. Tiger Illustrated today reported that Sweeney and Brent Venables will have an in-home Saturday with linebacker Quavaris Crouch of Charlotte, Michigan, and Tennessee. Their head coaches reportedly were in earlier in the week. And TI also reported that Sweeney is scheduled for an in-home today with defensive lineman Tyler Davis of Apopka, Florida. Former Gamecock 2020 running back commitment Makos Todd was offered by LSU. USC will also have several of its commitments in for officials this weekend. Among those who have confirmed that, cornerback Cam Smith, defensive end Rodriguez Fitton, receiver Kevion Mullins, and tight end Keyshawn Toney. Some other officials of note this weekend: USC target receiver Xavier Leggett of Mullins to Tulane. Now, these are scheduled. It's possible they could get changed, but this is what they have said are on their schedules. Running back Michael Dukes of First Baptist, and Clemson target offensive lineman defensive end Cooper Dawson of Hanahan to Syracuse. USC target offensive lineman Ja'Kai Moore to Penn State. USC target offensive lineman Matthew Bedford of Memphis to Indiana and then to Memphis. USC target cornerback Zay Flowers to Boston College. Tight end Jimmy Fritsch of Greenville to Connecticut. And USC target running back DJ Williams to Alabama. Oklahoma was in Thursday to see cornerback Chris Steele of Bellflower, California, a USC target. 2020 corner Christian Miller of Hilton Head was offered by Colorado State. And speaking of Matthew Bedford, talking with his coach about his visits to USC and Mississippi State last weekend, he said he enjoyed both. He's very impressed with Eric Wolford. Eric Wolford has done a great job here and apparently has put himself in excellent shape with the young man at this point. As I mentioned, he's going to take the two visits this coming weekend, and then, perhaps sometime next week, he might be prepared to make a decision. So we'll see what happens there. And as we go to the top of the hour break, Dillon has just scored with 1:59 to go. 34-26 with a point after pending. We'll fill you in on the other side of the top of the hour break.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Oh, my goodness. We have got drama galore here in the 3A state championship game. What a finish we are about to have, perhaps, here at Williams-Brice Stadium. It's 34-28 Chester. 1:32 to go. Dillon did a great job, had all 3 of its timeouts left after scoring that last touchdown. They used it as Chester tried to run the ball. Chester lined up to go for it on 4th and 1, got hit with a procedure penalty, which forced him to go back to punt. On the punt attempt, the ball goes through the hands of the punter. He fumbles it, falls on it, gets tackled. Dillon's got the ball at the now inside the 15 down to the 12-yard line after completing a pass. So Dillon is knocking on the door. Clock is running with 1:20 to go. I got to be careful, not going to do play-by-play here. They'll charge me. But Chester trying to hang on. Now, all Dillon's got to do, because they got the 2-point conversion a little while ago, is, of course, score and kick the extra point, and that's going to give them the lead. Chester still has all 3 of its timeouts should the Cyclones fall behind and get the ball and need to stop the clock. So we have got some real drama building here. Meantime, over at Benedict College, they are going to the 4th quarter in the 1A championship game, and it's Green Sea Floyd, the feel-good team of the playoffs, leading Lamar 26-14.
You know, it's interesting, Corn, when we talked about this matchup earlier in the week with David, we asked a question, again, a similar question that I asked Dabo Sweeney about what does it mean when it comes to having experience and knowing how to close out these games and being able to ride the momentum wave throughout 4 quarters. I mean, you're always going to be jacked up in the opening quarter and the opening half to play in a state championship game, and you're always going to have that emotion. But it's if you can carry that emotion through 4 quarters and keep your focus, keep your mental edge throughout the entirety of a football game. Dillon has that experience. Chester does not, and you're seeing it kind of play out here, personified in the latter stages of this state title game.
Why do I get the picture of seeing all the young guys looking up at the clock?
Yeah.
We've
come down to one play. We had a sack, and then we had an incomplete pass in the right corner of the end zone. So it's come down to this last play. A huge crowd here from Chester, by the way. You want to go steal some furniture, it's available in Chester right now.
Easy.
But it's come down to this last play. Dillon trying to pull it out, and we'll let you know momentarily how it turns out. And it is going to turn out in favor of the Cyclones, as they get another sack with 12 seconds to go, 13 seconds to go. So that's going to do it. Chester's going to win the 3A state championship, and it's going to be a 34, unless, of course, something happens along the lines of the Philadelphia Eagles of many years ago, where they fumbled the snap in victory formation. Who was that? Who was the quarterback?
Joe
Pisarcik.
Joe Pisarcik, and Herman Edwards scooped it up.
That was the Giants fumbling that away to the Eagles.
The Giants fumbled, and the Eagles scooped it.
The miracle at the Meadowlands. What you're looking
34-28. It looks like Chester's going to win this thing. So congratulations, Victor Floyd. You know, he's just one of those coaches that he left Chester after having success. He went to Brunswick, Georgia. He had success there, sent players to the SEC, and now he's come back to Chester, and he's going to win a state championship. So congratulations to him and the Cyclones. And I want to go back, and I want to open the phone lines too. Anybody out there who's won a state championship, I'd love to hear from you. Just tell 3 guys who've never tasted a state championship what it feels like.
Or any championship of any kind, other than my.
Well, I did win a Little League basketball championship as a coach one time.
I had the 5th grade and 4th grade little boys championship trophies from both of those years for basketball. Okay. That's about it.
Yeah. So anyway, 800-956-7266 is the number. If you want to share a comment on that, I'd love to hear what you have to say about being a state champion. Lamar has scored on a long pass over at Benedict and then recovers an onside kick. 3.5 minutes to play. They've got drama there. Green Sea Floyd's is holding on to a 26-20 lead, guys, but that one is on edge.
Certainly is, and from the standpoint of where they are, again, it's a little bit more of the experience factor and all that. But we'll see if that plays itself out.
Well, I was just about to go back to that last offensive play, and I've seen it not only at the high school level, but college and sometimes in the NFL. If you got one play, just throw it way up in the air in the end zone. Why eat the football? Why take a sack? You can't do that.
You see this here, Corn, from the Florida Gators. This is something that they put out there, and Scott Strickland, I think this is more of a PR move than actually a put your money where your mouth is type move. He says that he would welcome a 2-for-1 series against in-state opponent UCF. You were talking about, who does UCF play? Well, apparently the deal has been made, or at least the offer or extended offer has been made by Florida to UCF. He said, I'd be okay with scheduling them in the right situation. He said this during a Peach Bowl event that was being held at Florida Field. So if you're UCF, do you take that, Corn, or do you try to even leverage a home and home and do it that way?
No, I take it. I mean, yes, sir. How do you think Florida State got its ball rolling under Bobby Bowden? He accepted every big game opportunity that he could, no matter – he traveled anywhere he could get a big game. And what's this offer? Is this a 2-and-1?
They wanted two, according to Strickland, he said a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Danny White has the AD at UCF has responded. He says, I'm encouraged to hear that UF is open to the idea of playing us in football. Since I've been here, it had been made clear that there wasn't much hope of that. Our scheduling philosophy has been transparent since I arrived at UCF, that we're open to a home-and-home series with any non-conference Power 6 opponent. He says Power 6 on purpose because he's trying to elevate his own lame conference to the AAC into what is colloquially known as the Power 5, which I think is kind of stupid and short-sighted on his part. But, good on him for being willfully ignorant. It's fine.
Yeah, I would jump all over that. I think that, listen, you've got nothing to lose if you're Central Florida.
This is what he said. He said, top 10 programs don't schedule 2-for-1 series where the balance is not in their favor. Our growing fan base and our student athletes deserve better than that. So there you go. So he's basically saying, I don't want a 2-for-1. He wants a home and home instead. He doesn't want to have to play twice at Ben Hill Griffin Stadium and only once in his home building.
Well, what kind of deal years ago, Phil, that South Carolina had with UCF? Because I remember Spurrier almost regretted making that trip down to Orlando.
Was it when George O'Leary was there?
Yeah, because that year Central Florida only lost one game, and that was to South Carolina. After South Carolina had to wake up in the second half.
Yeah, I think that was was that not just a one-on-one deal? I remember one appearance by Central Florida in Columbia, and then the return trip to Orlando.
I think
it was 2013 and 2015. They had a they had a back and forth. The 2013 was won by 3 with Spurrier there, and then they ended up not playing the return engagement until 2015, and that was by that time Spurrier had left, and it was Sean Elliott coaching at that time. So it was a situation where I think 13 was the year that they were very good, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because Bortles was still there.
Yeah.
All right, 34-28, the final here. Chester wins its first state championship since 1963. Noticing here in the history books that they were good back in the 1930s. They won a championship in 1929. They won a championship in 1930. They won a championship in 1932. Then I think they won another one in 1935 and one in 36. Then things kind of dried up for them, I guess, until about 63.
They started wearing helmets after that.
Hey, you know what, though? It all counts. As a matter of fact, this would be, according to the high school league record books, this would be Chester's 7th football state championship, tying them with Camden and Spartanburg on the all-time list. So that's not half bad.
You were correct, by the way, Pro. That was the only team that UCF lost to in that 2013 year, that 28-25 final, because in the postseason, they ended up playing at University of Phoenix Stadium in the Fiesta Bowl. They beat then number 6 Baylor 52-42 in a game that lacked any defense.
Okay, got a break coming up. If you want to join us, have you won a state championship? I'd like to hear from you and know what it feels like. 800-956-7266. We're going to hear it from some of the basketball coaches as well. And we got a little Dabo Sweeney for you, too. Am I correct?
You are incorrect on that. We played it yesterday, but
Oh,
We could play it again if you want.
I have forgotten about yesterday. Sorry.
Sports Talk is the sports talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. From the coast to the mountains, we cover it all.
A lot of basketball to get to talk about here this weekend in the state of South Carolina among the collegiate teams. We'll hear from South Carolina head coach Frank Martin in a moment. Also, David Shelton on a recap of what's happened so far in the high school league state championships and what's still to come later on tonight. 800-956-7266. Corn, we understand that one of our celebrity callers is afoot.
Indeed. Always a pleasure to welcome in one of our celeb callers here on a championship Friday night. We're reminiscing about winning state championships or watching state championships being won. So let's welcome into Sports Talk the de facto mayor of the city of Charleston, the bad boy by the bay, the ninja of the night, the pontiff of the port city, the queen of the cowboy crybabies, and the man at the age of 16 who had a chance to win a state basketball championship for Old Rivers High School, but he airballed 2 free throws with a second left, and his team lost by 1. It's not Jim Rome. You can hear him on CBS Radio. It is J. Rome.
Hey, Phil.
Did you wet your pants when you did that? When you were at the line, a chance to win a state championship, were your knees wobbly?
Hey, I know your knees going to be wobbly now because you need to find a new coach now.
We'll find somebody. Somebody wants to coach the Packers.
How do you fire a guy? That's the best coach ever. I don't even have to look at your records.
Do you remember a guy named? Do you remember a guy named Vince Lombardi? Perhaps I think he probably goes down as the best.
Do you remember a guy named Phil Bankston?
Yes, unfortunately, we do. I promise you this: we'll have a coach by next season.
Well, you'll have to worry about hiring Hugh Freeze. He's already got the Liberty job. He won't have to change any of his clothes though, because it's the same colors.
Yeah. He's going to have to change his ways, I guess, because, at Liberty, I mean, they get some pretty strong rules up there, from what I understand.
Rules are made to be broken.
I don't think you can be calling, ladies of the night and things of that nature on your company phone. That's not a good thing to be doing.
Hey, and by the way, the Falcons may be looking for a new coach, too, with their nice 4-8 record. Oh, it's 4-9 now.
No, they're not looking for a new coach. I can tell you that right now.
I want a new coach for my football team. I want a whole new front office. I want the whole darn thing redone.
Hey, you're a Missouri guy. You got nothing to complain about.
No. I'm talking about the Jets. I'm talking about the Jets. I'm not talking about I don't root for Missouri, J. Rome. I root for the New York.
I know, but you're I
only went there. I only went there. I don't care.
I know. Hey, that's a pretty strong tie, okay? Hey, let me ask you this about the Jets. Is Aaron Rodgers going to actually finish his career in Green Bay, or is he going to go somewhere else? Because I don't see him wanting to waste too many good years in Green Bay. What?
You don't trade God, okay? That's one thing you do not do. You don't trade God, all right? He's not going anywhere. Hey. He and Danica will live a very happy, fruitful life in Green Bay.
Isn't Danica from Wisconsin? I think she's a Wisconsinite. So
yeah, I think she is. Mm-hmm.
Hey,
she's going to put the gas back in his tank. She's going to make sure his oil is always filled.
Phrasing.
Okay. Well, she must go cook up a pot of pinto beans there.
There's no pit stop that's going to fit him. I'm just telling you right now.
Okay, Jerome. Hey, Jerome, did you ever win a state championship when you were in high school?
Hey, I never played sports in high school, so I wasn't that good.
Were you
I was a bench warmer.
Were you more of a thinker?
I was the guy to give everybody water.
That's important.
That's important. He was a varsity letter winner in Waterboy.
In Waterboy.
I got a varsity letter for that.
Yeah.
I remember he was talking about the Green Bay coach. I remember when Dan Devine, who used to be Missouri's coach, coached the
Notre Dame for that matter,
Packers. And I think Tom Maddie was trying to do color for CBS at that time. And it was his last game because he said this. Dan Devine, the fans were so angry, somebody actually killed his dog. And Tom Maddie's retort to that statement was, You know they love their football in Green Bay.
South Carolina this weekend facing Michigan on the road. It was looking like maybe South Carolina could get 2 matchups against Michigan because of their play in the Mohegan Sun Classic, the College Basketball Hall of Fame Classic up in Connecticut. But instead, it's just the one matchup, and one is enough because this is a squad that has won 23 of its last 24 contests. The only loss coming in the national championship against Vanderbilt. Here's a little bit from Frank Marlin earlier this week talking about the challenge of the Wolverines.
Beeline and I have become friends. We've known each other for a long time, and ever since Russia, we remain in contact. And watching his team on film, watching him in person a couple weeks ago, wow! I mean, you know, I'll start being a miserable human being sometime Wednesday night when I'm back in our room in Laramie. And I'm watching film on Michigan, but I kind of peeked at their Purdue game and what they did to Purdue, which Purdue's really good, is ridiculous. They're playing at a high level right now.
What stands out about Beeline's defensive scheme, and I guess how does it compare to what you guys run?
Yeah, well, you know, I've always felt that he's so good offensively that he's never gotten credit for his defense. He used to play a lot more zone. They've become more man-to-man oriented. I know this. I've been with him in a dorm room and wearing USA trying to go win games. He's competitive as competitive can be. I mean, you know, he just kind of holds it together a lot better than I do. But from a competitive standpoint, ooh. And, you know, and he's a hard driver. Like, he is a hard driver. And so his teams have – you don't win 800 games, whatever he's won, because your teams don't defend. You know, and he's won everywhere. I don't care where he goes. His teams win and win big. But I think they're so good on offense that no one's ever given them credit defensively. I also think that he's got a team that's got a makeup that makes him even better defensively because of size, length, athleticism. You know, like their point guard. I'm drawing a blank right now. I'm really bad with stuff until we get ready to go play somebody. But their point guard, that kid's got a lot of Dwayne Notice in him. Like, kid that no one knows about. But guess what? Guess who the starting point guard in the national championship game for Michigan last year was? Him, because he's relentless. He guards. He's a winner. You know, and you know, he took a transfer that we played against in Charles Matthews, and he's been. Look at all those guys. A young man that plays for the Nets that no one thought much of, and just got himself an ugly injury a month ago or so. I can't remember his name. Yeah, unbelievable pro. Gerald Robinson, just keep going. All those guys. Then Tim Hardaway Jr., he does an unbelievable job with them big guards and preparing them to become pros. He's done the same with Charles Matthews. You know, it's so I think that there's a makeup of players that have taken his competitiveness, and they're real good defensively to start with as players, and they're playing a lot of man-to-man, and they're good. They're strong. Here's the thing. You watch film, you sit there and you can watch hours of film. There's certain things you don't get from a team until you see them in person. When I sat and watched them play in person in Connecticut, I hadn't started studying them yet, but I'm watching the game there in Connecticut, and I'm saying, that guy played in the national championship game. So did that guy. So did that guy. So did that guy. So I asked Chuck, I said, Chuck, he says, Frank, they lost this guy, whatever. Mo Wagner, he said another name. But the rest of them were on that team. They play like a team that's got unbelievable poise, that plays with a purpose. And kind of what you saw from Wofford a week ago. That's how they play.
And that is about the most complimentary thing you could say about Wofford, is that they play like a team that goes to a national championship, Corn. That is a lot of high praise from Frank.
A state champ. Oh, okay. Guess I won't get to that. Make sure you get the right one.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We come to you again from our Columbia studios. The sun is set across the South Carolina State House and, of course, over Williams-Brice Stadium where Phil Kornblut is stationed, covering the state high school championships, at least the three upper or at least higher state championships, the lower two of them, of course, being played now at Benedict High School. And two of them are already in the books with one still to go, at least at Willie B. And Phil Kornblut standing alongside with David Shelton from the High School Sports Report, Charleston Post, and Courier. Corn.
Yeah, and just to be accurate, Benedict College, not high school.
Yes.
Benedict College.
I meant college. Whatever.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Friday.
I don't want them mad at us by being referred to as a high school.
It's Friday. Okay.
He must be from Missouri or something.
Yeah, he's still learning. But he's got a good handle on things, but he's still learning. David Shelton, High School Sports Report, Charleston Post and Courier, hardest working man in the business, best in business, is here with us. And man, over the last 15 minutes, give or take, man, we had some major drama in Columbia between the end of this game and the end of the game at Benedict with two schools. One has won some championships, but it's been over 40 years. Actually, over 50 years.
63.
Yeah, since they last won. Then Green Sea Floyd's wins for the first time, and you just told me something very interesting.
Yeah, Chester head coach Victor Floyd. This is his first state title at Chester. And he is a native of Nichols, where Green Sea Floyd's is located. So it's a big night for that little small town community over in the Grand Strand. Is that the Grand Strand or the PD? Kind of in the middle.
It's sort of in the middle. Yeah. And boy, that's got to do wonders for that area, considering all the things they've been through with the flooding and loss of property and everything else. So we're very happy for them. Very happy for
10
Chester.
2 years ago.
Yeah, it's just great to see teams that win state championships. And, you know, you congratulate the losers as well, because they've had great seasons too. You should not let a loss in a state championship game by any means ruin your season.
Yeah, and a lot of people, unfortunately, are gonna look at Dillon's turnovers today. But I tell you, they did make some really crucial mistakes, some poor decisions with the ball. But Chester's defense was outstanding. 5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. They held Dillon tonight to 319 yards. And that is saying something, because Dillon, throughout the season, was one of those teams that was playing their backups in the second half.
Yeah. What about the decision late by Victor Floyd to, line up to go for it on 4th and 1, and apparently was going to go for it, and then he got called for procedure, and then they back up, and they mishandle the punt. They give Dillon new life.
Yeah, as Victor said after the game, he goes, man, they weren't intentionally trying to give Dillon a chance to win, but boy, they were sure giving him a chance to win. And they did just enough offense to get a couple of first downs in the fourth quarter and change the field a little bit. But I mean, with a minute to go, Dillon's on the 11-yard line with 4 chances, and they don't get a yard. Yep. And that was crucial. I mean, take a sack on the last play of the game. You can't take a sack. You got to throw it in the end zone and hope that something happens. But, you know, a lot of people are going to say that Dillon lost this game. I'm going to kind of lean towards Chester won this game. They jumped out first play of the game. They score on a long run. Then they return a pick six, 94 yards. They did the things they had to do to win this game. So they didn't have very much offense, Phil. They had 231 total yards of offense.
But they had that big play early.
Yep.
And then they had the pick six for a touchdown as well,
they
96
picked off 3
yards.
passes in the red zone today.
Great win for Chester. Let's hear a little bit from Victor Floyd. Just a few minutes ago, David was on the field with the masses from the media surrounding him and talking to the coach. Here's what he had to say.
You got to feel great.
I do. Great feeling. My guys played hard. We made that second half awfully tough. Dillon's a good ball club. Their guys rallied in the second half, and we were just fortunate to hold them off.
This has got to bring a lot of pride to Chester.
It is. The town's ecstatic. Look at them. I mean, they're ecstatic about this. We're excited.
Congratulations. It was hard-earned victory.
It was. Thank you.
All right,
how important was it that y'all got off to that really good start to kind of calm your nerves a little bit and give your kids a chance to know that they could win this game?
That was big. We talked about that all week, not allowing the moment to be too big for us and getting off to a fast start and not watch the Jumbotron. So it was huge for us to get off to an early start, fast start.
To hold on like this, what was going through your mind after that punt?
Hey, we just had to come up with a stop. That's all I was thinking about. Defense did a great job.
They kept giving us the ball in the second half. We didn't do a lot with it, but we did enough to get by.
All right, Victor Floyd, winning coach tonight here in Columbia. The kickoff of the 5A state championship game between TL Hanna and Dutch Fork. We're still about 15 minutes away, so it'll be close to 8 o'clock before we get this one kicked off. Dutch Fork is down below warming up. I swear they look like the New York Jets in those uniforms. For their sake, I hope they don't play like the Jets, David.
Or maybe the early Jets, so it's the Namath Jets. If they play like them, they'll be okay. But, this is going to be a good football game, man. This is two contrasting styles. Dutch Fork's a lot of balance, but can really hit the big play in the passing game. And, boy, TL Hanna's going to line up, and they're going to run that wing key, and they're going to run 15, 16, 18 play drives. And if they do, they'll win this game. But if they don't make it interesting early downs, if Dutch Fork can hold them, make it 3rd and long, I think Dutch Fork's going to win this game. But this is really going to be a good game.
Who's got the better defense?
I don't know, because honestly, neither of them have had to play defense. I mean, they both average one. Dutch Fork averages 58 a game, and TL Hanna averages like 48 a game. So we're going to find out tonight, because I think both defenses are going to be challenged by the other's offense.
Who do you think will have the biggest impact in the game? Zach Pickens or Jalen Hyatt?
I think Dutch Fork's going to find a way to tackle Zach Pickens. I mean, he's 285 pounds. I don't know how you do it unless you do it with a dump truck. But
yeah,
I think Jalen Hyatt is a big time player. I think he's going to show up tonight, and I think he's going to make some big plays in the passing game.
All right, before we let you go, let's comment on Myrtle Beach winning a state championship and Green Sea Floyd's winning a state championship. And then also we've got one more over at Benedict College tonight, the 2A championship, Abbeville and Barnwell. And we talked earlier tonight about the story coming out of Abbeville about 4 juveniles involved with something not very pretty. And there's been no confirmation, but there's been some, I don't know, stories, reports, posts that it involves 4 football players at Abbeville.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it does, based on all the stuff I've seen and heard. Talked to somebody today that said, yeah, it's 4 football players. I don't know if they're star players or if they're backups. I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're playing tonight because they have not been charged with anything. And the district policy is if you get charged, then you got to come off the field. But they're not charging them, and it may be something that takes place over next week or so. But that's going to be a hell of a football game, Phil.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have to be here, I would haul it over to Charles Johnson Stadium. And folks, if you're in Columbia and you're not at one of these 2 sites tonight,
yeah.
Oh man, I mean it's cold, but it ain't miserable cold.
No, it's not.
They need
bad
to go
at all.
watch these football games. They're going to be 2 good games tonight.
Yeah, and your thoughts again about Green Sea Floyd's?
Yeah, I just think it's a remarkable story based on what they've been through with the flooding. They were off the field for a month, and the only loss they've had since the flood is Lakeview, and they've avenged everything all the way down. And they beat the powerhouse in Class A. They beat Lamar. They didn't beat somebody that nobody's heard of. So what they did tonight, they held on. They had to hold on to win by a score, but they did it's remarkable what they did. And Myrtle Beach, same thing. 3.5 weeks with no practice, had to come back from the flood. Last game of the regular season, they get beat by 36 points by Hartsville, give up 70 points in the last regular season game. But in the playoffs, they averaged over 48 a game, and they put 37 on the board today. They look good. Luke Doty is going to be a fun player to watch next year. They lose a lot of senior receivers, and they lose their good senior tailback, but Luke Doty is going to have some fun next year in that offense.
244 passing yards on his future home field. So, the Gamecocks, they'll have, if all stays the same, they'll have Bentley next year. They'll have Walensky in to compete to back him up. Though you can't forget about Breon Joyner and Jay Urich. I mean, they're still going to be in the program, we guess, at this particular time. But then you add Doty. I mean, you're building up your quarterback strength there, no question about it.
Yeah, and Doty, what he showed today is when he needs to run it, he can run. He's a good, solid 200-pounder. He can put him up and down, and did a good job there late in the game of running out that clock with his runs.
Thank you. We'll see you tonight on the high school scoreboards. Okay. Enjoy this next game coming up here in just a few minutes, and we'll be back with more to hear from Brad Brownell. Talk some Clemson basketball coming up.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We are monitoring something that is kind of coming across the wire here, and we want to at least bring it to light and kind of give you what we know as far as this goes. But there is a report circulating from a couple of different places, including Auburn's 24/7 sports site, that Auburn is trying to center its offensive coordinator, its vacant offensive coordinator position search around Bobby Bentley, the running back coach at the South Carolina Gamecocks, of course, father of Jake Bentley, the starting quarterback at South Carolina. A lot of speculation to that. We've kind of worked the phones here on our own and talked to some of our trusted places, including Chris Clark at Gamecock Central, who says about 800 times it's not happening. Many believe that this just could be Bobby Bentley angling for a raise as the running back coach. There's been speculation on some South Carolina sites about if Bentley were to leave, then maybe Marcus Lattimore could come in and be the running back coach right away. But again, I don't know if that's necessarily something that would be an automatic slam dunk that you think of, but I just don't see logically, Corn, why going into Jake's senior season, Bobby Bentley would leave now to maybe coach for a man who is coaching for his job with Gus Malzahn, with the way that the situation is as unstable as it is. Whereas, you can probably build a program and obviously improve your stock even more if you get another good season with South Carolina if you're Bobby Bentley, and of course, one final year with Jake.
Yeah. You bring up some good points on why you wouldn't. And those are legitimate points. Also, though, you have to think about it, too. Number one, Bobby Bentley has wanted to be an offensive coordinator and a major college head coach. He was a head coach at Presbyterian. He left there. And his goal, once he went to Auburn and was a analyst and was off the field, but he did that to learn and get himself in position to get a assistant's job and then move up the ladder. He did that with Will Muschamp in South Carolina, coaching an unnatural position for him. He is a quarterback coach and he is an offensive coordinator. I don't think anybody will tell you that Bobby Bentley's not an offensive genius. And I mean, I would have been perfectly satisfied from a South Carolina standpoint if they had named him the offensive coordinator. But I mean, he has the relationship with Malzahn. Yes, I mean, it's a weird situation at Auburn. But he's got to believe, too, that if he can go in, if he is indeed going to be offered the job and can take it, that's a step up for him. And he goes in and proves himself and things go well, then, man, that's a feather in his cap. And it's a big step forward towards him becoming a head coach on the FBS level.
Yeah, this is, and again, we're getting this from a couple different places. Brandon Marcello, our friend from Auburn Undercover, the 24/7 site that covers the Auburn Tigers, is reporting that Malzahn has offered the job, though, Bobby Bentley, and they could have an answer within the next day or two. We do know that Bentley is at Williams-Brice Stadium, or was at Williams-Brice Stadium to watch the game involving Myrtle Beach in the state championship, watching obviously South Carolina commit in the 2020 class Luke Doty. So from that perspective, he is at least still doing his due diligence with South Carolina. And again, like I said before, this could be more angling for some more shekels if you are Mr. Bentley from that perspective.
But do you make the decision, Corn, in your opinion, prior to the early signing date, or you don't care what time it is done?
Well, I think if they're going to offer it to him, he jumps. I mean, remember now, he's the running backs coach at South Carolina. He's not the OC, so this is not going to have a big impact from that standpoint. I think it's probably a good move. The father-son thing at quarterback, he had to sit there and watch Jake get skewered by people for half the season and people calling for his job and Scarnecchia going out and having that game against Missouri and everybody saying he should be starting and not Bentley. I mean, you try to, immunize yourself from that as a father, but it's impossible. Might be a good thing. And then, listen, the idea of promoting Marcus Lattimore to running backs coach, absolutely nothing wrong with that because of his reputation, his knowledge, his ability to relate to the players, and you cut him loose as a recruiter as well if that's what he wants to do.
See, that's the problem.
I see it as a win-win for everybody if it comes to pass.
I just don't know if that's what he wants to do because he's very passionate about the job that the foundation and the job that he has now with South Carolina in a non-recruiting role and more of a player development and life skills type role. And that's basically a department that he got a chance to basically build from the ground up. I don't know if he wants to necessarily abandon that mission just after 1 year.
Yeah, but you know, you have to be malleable. I mean, you look at the revolving door at Alabama; they still get it done.
True. South Carolina, of course, again, playing in the Belk Bowl in the 29th of December in Charlotte. And, of course, Clemson playing in the Cotton Bowl in Dallas against Notre Dame. The Clemson men's basketball team getting ready for its matchup with Mississippi State. This is kind of another odd neutral site contest against an SEC opponent. Remember, they did that last year with the Orange Bowl Classic against Florida, and what was a neutral site contest in name only, but more like a road contest being played in Sunrise, Florida, in front of a lot of Florida fans. They will not have such an environment coming up tomorrow when they play in Newark, New Jersey. No real natural tie there, playing Mississippi State. Here's a little bit from Brad Brownell after the victory over St. Peter's, but not necessarily the most satisfying of victories for Brownell's squad that comes in off of back-to-back losses before that St. Peter's contest.
We told our guys that we thought we would win the game with the free throw line, and before the game we told them that was one of our keys to the game, and that's what we did, especially in the second half. I thought we really attacked the paint with the pass, with the drive, and guys did a good job of converting free throws, 23 out of 30. That was really good to see. So we made enough big plays down the stretch. Had a couple disappointing stops defensively late, where one of them was a play that we walked through a couple times and had a busted coverage and gave them a three. But I'm proud of the way our guys fought, because this was kind of one of those bumper grinder games where you don't have a lot of positive momentum. You don't get as much momentum and excitement when you have to go make free throws. When you make a three or you have a great drive and score, it kind of energizes you. When you get fouled and go to the free throw line, it's not really an energizing play. And so I felt like the whole night we were constantly just playing in a way that the game was hard, long possessions, and they'd back break you with a couple threes late, and then offensively you'd do some good things and get it in there, and they'd foul you, and then you have to go make free throws. And it's a hard way to win. So we didn't play great tonight, but St. Peter's deserves credit for the way they played, and I am proud of the way our guys fought to the end and found a way to win.
As we tumble towards ACC play, what is it from your team that you're looking for to build the momentum that you're going to need as you reach January?
Yeah, we got to play better on offense. Our defensive numbers weren't great tonight, but our offensive numbers weren't good, and that needs to improve. We can't make 2 threes and go 2 for 14 and expect to win games. We got to have guys in a better place in terms of making shots. And I'm anxious to watch the film to see what it is that we did. I thought we got a little tight. There's no doubt we got tight in the second half, and you saw some bad shots, guys that are open, and they shot the ball like, we're supposed to win this game, and we're having trouble. And that's what happens in these games that you're supposed to win. If the other team can keep it close, the game pressure in basketball shifts to the home team, and it's harder because you can't just bully a guy and go sack a quarterback, and you can't just knock their line down and run 75 yards for a touchdown. You got to methodically win the game, and when they're fouling you, and now you got to go make free throws, it makes the game even harder. Because there's no rhythm to your team. You're not ever getting enough positive feedback. And so, again, this was kind of an ugly win in certain ways, but it also showed some grit and some toughness and just hanging in there. And, again, I think St. Peter's deserves credit. Their kids played well. They had a plan to stay in the game, and when you make some threes, it allows you to do that.
That's a 4 o'clock start tomorrow in Newark.
All right. Well, good luck. First offensive play of the game for Dutch Fork. It's a long pass. It is a touchdown for the Dutcherman. I got to catch the number here. See if I can get you the player real quick. So Dutch Fork takes the early 6-0, soon to be 7-0 lead over TL Hanna. The pass was caught by Gage Zerka, or is it coming back? Well, anyway, we'll have our high school scoreboard for you tonight. Looks like it's coming back, so everything I just said, forget about it. Thank you, everybody. High school scoreboard tonight. Have a great weekend.